All right. I guess I'll begin by saying I'm very excited to actually have the first draft that I've obviously been a GM of be over. So obviously, navigating it, I thought, at least from my standpoint, I thought the staff did an amazing job. Again, as I said at my first press conference before the draft, that there's so many people get involved in the college scouting process at various levels, from the college scouts to the pro scouts to all the administrative people. To the coaches, to the trainers, to the doctors, to the director of security, the video guys. Like, we put so much time and effort in this, and ironically enough, you spend almost a whole year working on this, and it comes down to literally 3 days, and at the end of the day, 6 picks, which in a perfect world I wish I had more, but it just kind of worked out that way. But again, I'm very excited that the whole draft is concluded, although I do have to run back upstairs here shortly and work on college free agency. So today in the draft, obviously in the 4th round, we took Bryce Petty, obviously I'll answer any questions about him. We're very excited where we got him. And again, when people are asking about the other day whether we target positions and stuff like that, we really try to take the best player available, and we try to make sure what we feel the investment point of that player kind of corresponds to the round, and in essence, the opportunity cost. So we felt good about Bryce today in terms of where he fell to. And we made a little move just to make sure we got him, because we did sort of, in our process, find out or feel that other teams may have been trying to move up to trade for him. So we thought he had a chance of falling to us, but we were kind of actively talking to the teams ahead of us, trying to gauge the market for him, or we kind of caught wind that other teams were potentially trying to move up for him. So we eventually traded what equated to a 7th round draft pick just to ensure moving up one spot to make sure we landed him. In the 5th round today, we took Jarvis Harrison, who is a very big, athletic, and talented offensive guard from Texas A&M that we were very excited about at that point in the draft to get in terms of upside and potential. And then the final one was Deion Simon, the defensive tackle, who will probably be a nose tackle for us from Northwestern State, Louisiana. Again, another very talented player who slid in the draft to a point where we thought for a potential return on our investment would be potentially a very good pick. We did actually acquire with one of our 7th round draft picks today, Zach Stacy. Again, when St. Louis made the trade for Gurley, they started working the phone lines, trying to see if they could move Zach. We felt at that point in time in the draft, when we're kind of weighing some of the players we were considering drafting and what they would potentially bring to the organization, we thought the idea of bringing Zach in for that kind of investment would be very beneficial and increase the competition at that position. He's had success in this league. Obviously, 2 years ago, he was close to 1,000-yard back. This past season, his production wasn't quite as high, but we do think he is a good caliber running back to throw into or put into our in our running back backfield to make that position much more competitive. So that's kind of the moves we made today, and right now we're trying to actively go up there and sign college free agents, which almost as importantly with the draft, you can find good value. I mean, there's good value out there right now. We're obviously going to try to recruit good players and hopefully sign and bring them in to, again, make our team as competitive as we can make it going forward. So, any questions I can answer?
What makes you confident, Mike, that he can make the transition from the offense he played in at Baylor to an NFL-style offense?
Well, when you go, again, with all quarterbacks coming from college, you try to look at you look at them in terms of where you think they could potentially develop into. We do think that Bryce has a high ceiling. We do like him. I do think where he kind of fell in the draft in terms of kind of the risk and also the potential reward was a very fair price. Obviously, some other quarterbacks were drafted ahead of him. But when we looked at Bryce, we know from our standpoint, he has very good physical attributes for the position. He has size, he has stature, he's an athletic kid, has very good arm strength, can physically make all the throws you want him to make. And then from an intangible standpoint, when we researched him down there, he's an intelligent kid, he's a hard worker, he's a good kid off the field. So he has all the parts and pieces we would think to potentially be a good quarterback in the NFL, and time will tell what level of player he becomes. We are familiar, obviously, with the system he played in. We did get exposure of him trying to play, obviously, in a more pro-style system in the Senior Bowl, and Kevin Petula currently our quarterback coach, I had the chance to work with him at the Senior Bowl, so he had some exposure to that, and so he has kind of a feel for where he is. Also got a chance to kind of be with him in the classroom environment down there, and got a feel for how he transitioned, or how where he's at in terms of his transition to being in the league. So to answer your question, time will tell what kind of player he'll become, but we do think he has all the physical attributes and parts to be a good quarterback in this league. Again, it's going to be a maturation process from where he is in college, because again, he played in a system that's not really as similar to some of the pro systems. But we thought he had all the raw potential and ability that if you're going to invest time in a quarterback, he had all those attributes that would be very good to work with.
Mike, as you looked at him, how much did it play into your decision that you obviously don't play the same offense here as what Baylor did? But there's some spread tendencies here. They obviously ran a spread. He mentioned that when he visited Maccagnan, he saw a lot of similarities on the film. How much did that play into the decision that you felt like that could help his transition a little bit more, so than if you ran a totally pro-style type, way different offense than he was familiar with?
Well, I think, and I may defer to Todd a little bit in terms of the systems and stuff we're going to run, but I think it's with a lot of players, you try to analyze kind of where they're at, and at the end of the day, they're going to have to kind of get up to speed with what we do, and that's kind of the maturation process, and again, a bit of the unknown with these players. And correspondingly, that's when you're going to find a point in the draft you feel like the risk is worth it. So and people had asked the other day, like, that's why I find sometimes if teams try to force picks and force players, they don't properly value the risk and possibility the player may not develop. So I would say, yeah, there's things that he probably did in college or from a system standpoint that correlate to what we do. But again, a lot of the stuff at an NFL level may be a little more complex. So again, there's going to be a learning curve with him, and we're very aware of that. But we think in time, again, between the character and the physical attributes, we think he's a guy that we're very excited about to see how he makes that transformation.
Like you mentioned the learning curve, realistically, is it fair to say he'll be the third quarterback this year, or is there a possibility that he could actually move up a depth chart?
Well, I would kind of defer all those questions to Todd, I think, in terms of that aspect.
I can't say he's going to be a third quarterback this year. We just got him. Obviously, we got Matt Sims here, so he has to show and he has to beat them out. So it's going to be a healthy competition, and we'll see where he is and how he grows and how he develops as opposed to where he's going to be on the depth chart.
What kind of timetable would you say that a guy like this would take more than a year to, realistically, perhaps be in the mix to be a starter?
He's got a lot to learn. Like I said, we're not looking for him to be a starter right now. He has to project a whole different offense and type of scheme that he goes to, and only in his head that you can tell that you got to see progress before you kind of make those kind of decisions. And we haven't even got him here to get him on the field yet, so I don't know how fast that can happen.
I know you've been asked this a bunch of times since you've been hired, but on the quarterback situation, now that the dust has settled, the draft's over, can you just kind of give us your definitive scouting report on how they stack up and what your plans are for these guys going into training camp?
The same thing I said before, how they stack up. Obviously, Gino's going into training camp first team, and Ryan's going in second team. And Matt's going to get some reps, and Brett's going to get some reps. Bryce is going to get some reps, and we're going to play. And we're going to let them battle it out, and we're going to see who makes growth and who moves forward, and we're going to make the best decision we can make for the team to start the quarterback.
Would it be accurate to say that Bryce is kind of a project then who's going to be developed?
Yeah, we're trying to develop him. Obviously, when he gets in here, you got to change foot mechanics and different scheme, and he sees some similarities, but he's a smart person, so developing him with his brain and his physical ability is something we hope that we can put together over the course of time.
Mike, you mentioned the trade up one spot for Bryce Petty. How does that literally work? Do you call the teams ahead of you and say, look, we're gonna draft Bryce Petty, will you give us a heads up if someone else calls, or did the Jaguars give you a heads up?
I did ask David on the phone who was going to try to trade up for him, but he wouldn't. But I'm joking around. I did ask David because I know David Caldwell very well, so I was kind of like I joked around with him. I said, "You're not going to tell me who's trying to move up." No, what happens is we do have, and I don't want to go into too much detail. We do have ways of kind of gauging interest, and then if you've been through the draft a number of times, you kind of know sort of when everybody sleeps on it for an evening, you come back the next day, the dust settles. You find a lot of teams always try to move up at the start of the draft, so. We had our little ways of putting out feelers to kind of get an idea of, or gauge what the potential market was going to be. We felt that was, and again, we had other players we were thinking about drafting at that point in time too, and he was one of them. And as we kind of felt at that point in time, that would be a very good point in time to take a player like Bryce. We also had teams kind of coming up for our pick, and of course we go through the needs of like what they need, and we put 2 and 2 together basically. And then what we tried to do was talk to the teams ahead of us just to see, because we're very close to where they were picking, so it would cost us less just to move up a spot or 2 or 3. So we just reached out to those teams, and we found if they were interested in potentially trading. Most of the teams we talked to wanted to, take a player, which is fine. Which is at that point in time, a lot of teams, there were some good players at the top of the draft. And then when it came to Jacksonville, I just had a feeling. I just thought to myself, I was like, if I sit here and don't reach out to Jacksonville for really a nominal cost, which is a 7th round draft pick per se, compared to a 4th round draft pick. If we had just sort of waited and another team jumped us and took him, because I figured everybody else in the league was probably looking at us saying, well, they're going to look for a quarterback. So we just did it sort of preemptive, and it's one of those things that just worked out in our favor. We got the player we had liked, and it really, for the cost standpoint, it for us was worth the investment, basically.
Mike, hold on 1 second. We're going to take 2 more. Got to get them back up for undrafted free agents. Go ahead, JP.
Mike, with the Stacy trade, are you guys at all worried that maybe Ridley might not be ready physically as quickly as you might think, or did that factor into it at all?
No, not at all. In fact, we like Steven quite a bit. I think in our approach to everything, it's we're just trying to make, at least, as we approach college and pro free agency, we're just trying to make every position as competitive as possible. So anytime we have an opportunity, and again, it's what the cost of the investment is. So if you can get what you may view as a NFL caliber running back who's had production in the league for what we perceived as a rather low investment, since when we look at historically at 7th round draft picks, they tend to be 10 to 15% chance they'll be on your team in 2-3 years down. We have all these stats. So it just really was trying to make the position as competitive as possible. I wouldn't read too much into it. I think we just kind of look at this thing as trying to make every position as competitive as possible, and at the end of the day, that'll make us a better team.
Was Petty taking Winston and Mariota out of the equation? Was Petty your next highest guy?
I really wouldn't want to comment on where we had the quarterbacks rated. But I will, needless to say, we obviously liked Bryce. And when we went through, and again, we have our values on players, and as the draft unfolds, like you've noticed at times, we'll either kind of move back a little bit. It's trying to, again, we're not really targeting players, but we're trying to targeting value. So, but again, I wouldn't really want to say where we had Bryce on our depth or on our board. It's sort of, that's internal stuff.
Mike, you mentioned the other day that knowing that this draft will be graded immediately by outsiders, what's going to be important to you is how you feel about it at its end. So how do you feel about this draft?
I feel good. I think every draft, when you go into it, has you have a perception of the talent in the draft overall, and some years appear to be stronger, some years appear to be thinner. I think the real thing, and the players we took, I liked the players we took, and I felt very good about the players we took, in terms of their upside and potential, and for where we got them in terms of the risk and the investment. But again, it's one of those things I feel good about it, and we'll kind of see how they play. I'm kind of excited to see how they look when we actually get them in the building. But again, in terms of potential of what they may be, I'm very excited about that.
And Todd, when you look at your roster now compared to Wednesday, do you feel like you got better in one particular area, or anything that you feel particularly good about?
I think we got some good football players. I think we got guys that create healthy competition, and that's what you want going forward. And you want to bring the best out of guys. And we tried going into it to get guys and bring guys in here to create healthy competition, and that's what we did.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.